Welcome to Real Leaders with Roshini, the podcast with real talk, real questions, real insight, and we hope real inspiration for real. We're here at Capitol Grill in downtown Minneapolis. My guest today is Darin Lynch, CEO of Irish Titan. That is a digital agency focused on e-commerce, design, creative, and strategy. Darin, so much to get into with you, but first I've got to talk about the name, Irish Titan.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm humbled to be part of this one. I've listened to the rest of the podcasts and see companies like Smile International and companies far more noble, it feels like, than Irish Titan. So thanks for having me. So I think that when I started Irish Titan, or when I was getting ready to start Irish Titan, there were some things I had in mind that I was not really sure of at the time. They were more subconscious than conscious. And the first name that popped in my mind was Irish Dragon. And thank God that domain was taken and the guy wouldn't sell it to me because it sounds way too much like a tattoo parlor. So when I went back to the drawing board, that's when I started to realize what my criteria were. And I still have the piece of paper when I realized what they were, where I wrote it down. The three criteria were, first, I wanted the name to be open-ended because I had a couple of different ideas about what I wanted to do when I started the company, and I didn't want it to lock us in because, for example, one of my two ideas was a fitness technology product. So if I had named us Fitness Technology Inc., we wouldn't be doing what Irish Titan's doing today. So that was the first criteria. Secondly, I wanted the name to be catchy and memorable without sounding like I was trying too hard to be catchy and memorable. And lastly, I didn't want my name on the shingle. Not that I was ashamed of it, but I wanted to build something bigger and better than myself from the beginning so that if it outlasted me or outgrew me, it could live without me. So those were the three criteria. I knew I wanted Irish in it, and there's another angle. I'll go back to that here in a second. But I knew I wanted Irish in it, but I wasn't exactly sure of what the other word was going to be. And then one day when I was playing basketball with my buddies here that I played with for close to 25 years, I was running down the court. I remember really vividly, I was on the north side of the court running east to west on a fast break when Irish Titan popped in my head, and that's all she wrote.
For people who don't really know what a digital agency focuses on, what do you do for your clients?
So in the most simple terms, what we do is we build websites and work with our clients on attracting people to those websites. So the marketing of those websites, attracting people to those websites, and then converting people on those websites so that they either buy things. So that's the e-commerce angle. The bulk of our clients are those who are selling things online, whether they're selling them to consumers or other businesses. So we want to convert those clients to actually make a purchase. Or if it's not an e-commerce client, it might be somebody who owns a restaurant and wants somebody to call in and make a reservation. Or it could be a consulting company and they want people to reach out and contact them. So that's what we do. We build websites and help people attract and convert visitors to those sites.
And you have a very distinct and intentional tagline, business first, online second.
Yeah. So I learned that I learned a variation of that from one of my previous bosses prior to starting Irish Titan. And when I started Irish Titan, what I saw was an opportunity in the marketplace to do something different. And I didn't say business first, online second until a few years after we had started. We were at a happy hour, just a few of my employees and I, and I said, guys, we got to remember that we need to be business first, online second. I was trying to make sure we maintained our focus on trying to help our clients from the right perspective. And one of the guys said, Lynch, write that down. That's really good. And then I trademarked that. We have that framed and hanging up by the main entrance to our office. Then about a year later was when I happened to meet Simon Sinek, who wrote a book called Start With Why. That's the most important business book I've read. And that's when I realized that business first, online second is our why. So that's been a driving force for our business.
And you've had an interesting journey in that you actually sold your company to a private equity firm in 2009, 5 years after you started it, and then you repurchased it 2 years later in 2011. What was that all about? Yeah,
so I had started to do some work with that private equity firm, referring some clients back and forth. There were some synergies with values between how I wanted to operate and how that private equity firm operated. At that point, we were much smaller, and I think that private equity firm was looking at acquiring a little more digital expertise, some sales and marketing expertise. And so they purchased Irish Titan. I joined the firm. The 2 years that they owned us, my job was to roughly spend about half my time running Irish Titan and half my time doing work for the firm. They were great. I learned a lot from them. They challenged me to do some governance sort of things with Irish Titan that I might not have otherwise, because some of those things aren't necessarily the things I like to spend energy on. But then over the course of those 2 years, I really just started to develop some clarity around what I wanted to do with Irish Titan, how I wanted to do it, and decided to buy it back, and did so very amicably. They were great. If I had to do it all over again, I probably wouldn't do it all over again. I'd change some numbers around, right? Like dial some numbers down on the repurchase and dial some numbers up on the sale to them a few years earlier. But it was a good process.
Wow. And so what would your big lesson be to other business owners out there?
I think that the lesson that I really took from that process was the value in understanding how your business works, because I knew very well what we did for our clients, but the exercise of going through that sale and then the reacquisition really helped me sharpen my saw with how the financials and economics of my business work, and that was really valuable.
Really important. You also have a lot of fun, and I need to ask you about this fun fact. You once bought Clint Eastwood a beer.
Yes, I did. I was at a restaurant in Des Moines, and we were getting ready to leave, and heard some rustling around the bar. And this was back probably in '95, something like that. And so I asked my buddy, who happened to be a bartender there, what was going on, and he said, Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep just walked in. This is when they were filming Bridges in Madison County. And I was a giant Clint Eastwood fan, but this was only a few years after he had started to, I would say, achieve some more mainstream credibility and respect. You know, it was after he'd won an Oscar for The Unforgiven, and wasn't just Dirty Harry anymore, and Dirty Harry's awesome. But then at that point, he was pretty widely accepted as sort of early stages of being a living legend. And so he said, Clint Eastwood's here. And I look, and there he is with Meryl Streep and just a couple other people. There wasn't any big contingent of people or bodyguards. I was about ready to leave because I didn't want to bother him. And then I thought, I can't walk out of here without saying hi to Clint Eastwood. So I walked over, I grabbed 2 beers, and this was back when Miller Lite used to put the orange labels around their bottles around Halloween, like with a jack-o'-lantern on them. I bought 2 beers, took one over to him, said, sorry to bother you, sir, just want to shake your hand, and gave him a handshake. He has a good, firm, single pump shake. And I said, thanks, Clint. And that's it. And I walked out.
That was it? Like, you didn't even wait for him to talk with
you? And people say, well, what about Meryl Streep? I didn't even talk to Meryl Streep. No offense to Meryl Streep, but he's Clint Eastwood. And I was just sort of caught up in the moment of talking to Clint Eastwood.
And you knew, you kind of had that one-track mind at that moment.
Correct.
What you were trying to do. Well, here's a place where you can't not talk, and that is at a Kiss concert. You've been to 30 different Kiss concerts. I mean, that deserves some kind of Guinness book.
Well, you'd be surprised. I am a pretty big Kiss fan, but there are people who know even more about Kiss and have been to even more concerts than have I. But yeah, I will admit I'm a big Kiss fan.
What is it about this band?
Well, I think, I don't know. It's sort of a long journey. I was 9 years old in a small little farm town in Iowa when we walked into a Kmart, and I saw this album cover. It's Dynasty. It's the album with I Was Made for Loving You on it. And it's just a close-up of their 4 faces, and I made my mom buy it. I basically probably threw a tantrum until she agreed to buy it, just because I thought they looked really cool. And from that point forward, I've been a Kiss fan. And I think that some of it was at first just the appeal of these guys in makeup playing music that I thought was really cool. And then as I got to know them and I started to read a little bit more about them, et cetera, I started to really be intrigued by how intelligent Gene and Paul are and how they sort of do their own thing and defy convention. And at one point, I remember thinking, I was in a car ride, actually, with one of the guys from the private equity group. And he said, so who's your favorite band? And I remember thinking, do I say Kiss at this stage in my life, or do I not say that? And at that moment, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to run from that. And I said Kiss. And so that was sort of a seminal moment where I decided I'm really going to embrace this and not run from it. Yeah.
I love it.
30 concerts, probably 10 of them in makeup.
I love it. Now, did they and their hair inspire your long hair?
I don't know. I kind of hope not, because Gene and Paul, as much as I like those guys, do not have good hair at this stage in their career.
No, they don't right now. They did at one point. You are a very proud father of 2 daughters. How has having daughters affected your life?
I am a proud father of 2 daughters. I think they have probably softened me a little bit. They might roll their eyes at that and or grimace in what it might have meant otherwise, or imagining me less, softer around the edges. But it has, I think, helped me soften my edges, be a little bit more patient and sensitive and understanding. Those are things that are not necessarily my strong suit. I'm very amicably divorced probably 10, 11 years ago now, and I give a lot of credit to my ex-wife with how amicable it's been. But I think that also really served as an experience that forced me to invest a lot of time and energy in being as good a father as I could, because that was really important to me.
And what would your advice be to former spouses who still have to raise kids together?
Probably nothing all that creative or unique. I think you don't want to put the kids in the middle. I think that for whatever reasons might have prompted the divorce, separation, at that point you want to make the most of it. And I think that if you can let go of some of the anger or confusion or resentment, whatever it might be, and look yourself in the mirror, there's no situation, whether it's personal or professional, where either party is 100% responsible for the good or the bad. And so maybe it's 99% and 1%, or maybe it's 50-50 or 60-40, whatever that number may be. But if you can start from there and let go of any of that resentment, and let your kids be your kids, I think that can start you down the road where you can still have that good relationship. It takes 2.
It really does take 2. When you are not going to Kiss concerts and working hard on your company, Irish Titan, what does Darin Lynch do for fun?
Well, I would say that part of my work is fun. I'm blessed enough to feel like I don't have a job. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that in an insincere way. Part of the reason I started my own company, I didn't start my own company to create a job, because that's the wrong reason to start your own company. I created my own company to start a company that I always wanted to work for. And so I blend a lot of personal and professional together. I've taken my daughters to work. They don't really like to go to work as much anymore now that they're a little bit older. But when they were younger, I took them to work. And then, for example, I would take them to Valley Fair. We live close to Valley Fair. And during the day, I'd take them there, and I would work after riding some rides with them. And so I would blend a lot. So I actually have a lot of fun at work. And outside of that, spending time with my daughters is part of how I unwind. I'm recently engaged, so obviously spend a lot of time with my fiance. I better, right?
Congrats.
Thank you. And so we like to go to music and movies and walk my giant Great Dane dog and those sorts of things. I also like to do a lot of physical stuff. I mentioned basketball earlier. That's the one thing that I find most comforting to do, is play basketball with my buddies. I also like to mow my lawn. So that gives me about an hour away from people and budgets, and I can see the lawn being mowed. Just it's pure progress.
If there were one song that would be the soundtrack for the life of Darin Lynch, what would that song be?
Ironically, it's a Kiss song, but it...
Not surprisingly.
Correct, except for it was an unreleased song that didn't come out until their box set in, I don't know, 2004, 2006, something like that. Shame on me as a Kiss fan for not remembering the exact year their box set was released. But it's a song called It's My Life, and it talks about doing things for your own reasons, not being persuaded by convention, independent thought, those sorts of things. And it's just ironic that a band that when I was 9 I fell in love with, later, 30 years later, has a song that comes out that I feel best represents me. It's a great song, I think.
It is a great song. Well, Darin Lynch, thanks so much for spending time with us talking about the evolution of Irish Titan, as well as your Kiss. I don't know what we want to call it. Penchant for Kiss.
Right. Well, the first step to solving a problem is admitting you have it, right?
Exactly. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Roshini.
Until next time, keep it real.